Hello, my name is Danielle Navas. I am a realtor and mentor here with Texas United Realty. And so tonight's discussion is going to be over new construction. And this is really to go over the information as an agent and what you need to know when talking to your client about new construction. New construction is an awesome way to go with your client, especially if you've kind of looked at everything and maybe they're being kind of picky and you're not really quite sure what direction to take them in next. So new construction, or it's something to even go over at the beginning to see like, is this the right fit for them? Some people don't like new construction. They feel like it's very cookie cutter. They feel like all of the houses look the same, and that's not what they want. They want a lot of character to their home. So don't get me wrong, there is character to new construction if you have the right amount of money. But keep in mind also that a lot of the houses are very uniform in appearance. And so many times the complaint is that the houses feel like they're right on top of one another or they're very close together and there's not a whole lot of yard. Okay. So, new construction has some great pros to it. So what I like to express to my clients is what's great about new construction is that we don't have to worry about how old is the roof, how old is the AC, when is the water heater going to give out. Man, we've got to work and worry about these things and see when they're going to need to be taken care of because it's a used house kind of thing. So with new construction, we don't have any of those worries because everything is brand spanking new. Many of the items are covered under warranty with the builder, which is fantastic. If there's an issue, they make a work order for it and they come out and they fix it. Okay. So it's a really great thing for you to introduce to your client because it might be a product that they can go for. Now, don't get me wrong, new construction isn't always ideal as a realtor, especially when you're trying to pay bills, because it does take at times, 4 to 5 months for us to build in most cases. Okay. Some builders are inventory builders and already have their product built and ready to roll. So for instance, like DR Horton, they are ready to roll. They've got their product ready. It's what they build. It's very uniform. This is what it is. You either take it or leave it. So all of our cabinets are the same. All of our flooring is the same. It's as, they bought it all in bulk and they stick it in and that's how they roll. Okay. So you kind of take it or leave it and they're ready to close usually within 30 days. Of course, I have seen some locations of DR Horton where all of their normally they construct and then sell. And so they were so busy that they didn't even have enough time to have homes constructed and they were already sold. So, and of course we have obviously more demand here in Houston in the past year or so. I would say more than that, but the demand has really increased recently. So, um, and then you have other builders that are like KB Home, for example. And so they build to suit in a way. So they still have their own floor plans and all that good stuff, but you get to pick your flooring and your cabinets and different elevations, like if you want higher ceilings and all that good stuff. Of course, the thing about KB Home as well too is that they like to tack on their prices. So it almost feels like, my goodness, we're about to pay for the air that we're breathing in this place because everything is an upgrade. Everything is oh, well, if you want that lot, it costs this premium. And, if you want these kind of floors instead of these, it's this other, price. So the price does start to go higher and higher as you're looking at that new construction home. So just keep in mind as you're going through that process of what will happen. Now, typically you have some wiggle room with your client as well too for you to go a little bit higher in price point with your new construction home. So keep in mind when a lender is approving your client for a mortgage, they are approving them for a payment amount. But unfortunately, that's not how we buy houses. We buy by overall sales price. And so for example, a person that lives is purchasing pre-approved with a resale home at 200,000. Typically, they can support a mortgage note of anywhere between 1,800 or so, 1,700 to about 2,000 a month, okay, on average. Now, With new construction, your dollar stretches a little further, and you could actually go up to about 220 at new construction with that same client, and their payments would come out to be the same. And that's because they have a lower tax rate in most cases, which allows them to be able to have their prices as such as how it reflects. And the thing is that it's on unimproved land, so there was no house on the land at that time, which gives you lower taxes. But of course, as that house gets built and time progresses, the appraisal district is going to realize, oh my goodness, there is a house on here. We're going to have to raise those taxes according to your property value there. Okay, so Uncle Sam does want his money as always. So let's kind of go over, first off, how do we find the new construction for our client? So there's a few ways. If you go to your matrix system, you can go down to new construction, which is right down here. You click yes, and then you can, of course, pop in your settings as to what you're looking for. And of course, I always like to go to the map to see what's kind of out there. And so here you can see all of new construction. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of new construction in this area. Um, it's very few and far between. Now, this will include also new construction of maybe one individual person has put together, like whoops, that was weird. One, like an individual that's building a house and they put it up like that. And then of course it could be like a company, KB Homes, Lennar Homes, Beezer Homes, things like that. Okay, so you can find some of them here and it'll be naturally included with your clients. If you're sending them a list, this would be naturally included unless you specified that whether you wanted it or you didn't want it through your criteria. Okay, the other place that you can go to is newhomesource.com. Okay. Now there's no true platform that has every single new construction company on there. So unfortunately, you will have to go through and see which ones you can find. At one point, I tried making a list, and my goodness, I think I got up to like 50 new construction homes at that time. Okay, so there's quite a bit, and it can get a little bit crazy and stuff. So, and some of them are even like the two different names, but the same company. Like for instance, Centex and Pulte Homes are the same one and the same as well too. And there's a few other ones that kind of function that same way as well. So just kind of be aware of that even as you are looking. Many times you'll have to go to that individual builder's website to see what they actually have going on and to look for the most current inventory. But at least this gives you an idea of what you're looking at and what's available for your clients, okay? And they have a map available as well too. Here's your map view. And you can narrow it down by price and all that good stuff and area as to what you're looking for, okay? So that's very helpful. And then, um, so oftentimes I get from agents, they're like, my goodness, what is my role in this and how does this work and how does this differ from traditional home buyer information? So to be honest with you, the process is quite the same. It's just a little bit more stretched out. Um, so a lot of the same things still apply. Okay, they will still need their down payment. There are still closing costs involved, and there is still process money and so on that's involved as well too. Okay, so down payment will still be the same amount. They will have to, get pre-approved and all that good stuff. And we're about to talk about their preferred lender and all that. Closing costs. Closing costs with their preferred lender is usually a little bit higher than normal. Okay, so it's to say, for instance, on a $200,000 home, typically on a resale home, you're maybe looking at about $7,000 worth of um, uh, fees and closing cost fees. And with new construction and their preferred lender, they're a little bit higher. They're about 10,000 or so. Many times they end up getting more money from the asking for more money in taxes from the clients than it's normally requested. So that's typically what happens. Um, the process is about the same, okay, in regards to earnest money. You're still going to have earnest money. It just really depends. You'll have to ask that builder. I've seen it anywhere from, at one point, DR Horton had even like $99. It was like crazy. But normally the least I see is like $500. And then I've seen them up to like $10,000, just depending on the price point. And so like when it gets to $10,000 is we're talking about like a $500,000 home. Okay. There is no option period during your new construction purchase. There is no option period whatsoever. So you would have to ask the new construction builder, how long does my client have to be able to cancel this transaction? Okay. And receive their earnest money back. Now, an inspection. Your client, of course, as always, does not have to do an inspection, but as realtors, we strongly encourage our clients to get that inspection done. And there's two ways to do an inspection. Either one, you can get all three phases done of the inspection, okay, and that'll come out to typically about like $700 or so. And so that would be right before the slab is poured, and then later on, once the frame is up, and then after when walls are up and we're have electrical and all that stuff set up. Okay, so most of my clients have never really done the before slab pour. And typically they just really focus on, before walls go up and after walls go up. So it's really up to your client, and most inspection companies are able to handle that. And usually for one phase, it's about 375 or so. Now, I will say, I have never had a new construction uh, inspection done that didn't come back with at least a little something on there. Nobody's perfect. New construction is not perfect. And so it's going to come back with some issues. Let me just tell you, there are some clients that, let me put it in a phrase, should not see how their burger is made, and they should just get a burger that's already made. Some people, especially people that create a lot of anxiety or are high strung or can turn small issues into big things, can have a lot of trouble with new construction because they can nitpick at every little thing, and things that to them will seem very um, uh, logical to them as how they should function are not exactly how things go. And so when that defies your logic, it can create some issues for that client. So, just you'll have to take it with your client and move forward um, on how you see it rolling. Okay. There is no HOA fee that is involved. If there is, they end up putting it into your closing costs fees. But you will need to do an appraisal. Okay, we can't get away from the appraisal. Typically, there's an appraisal done right at the beginning when like slab is poured, and then later on once it's fully constructed, and they really just go through there very quickly and do their appraisal. Um, so lender is going to ask for the same stuff as well too. So all that same stuff is normal. There are some builders like Anglia Homes will take clients that have a 580 credit score. Okay. But then there are others that are like Centex, and they require your client to have a 620 credit score or above. Okay. So that's just something that they require across the board. Now, if you have a lender on your own, a private lender that can approve at 550, by all means, you can use your private lender and still purchase this new construction home. Likely you won't get the incentives for your client, but they're able to still purchase that way. So, but typically, even if they do take your client at a 580 credit score, they need to be willing to get up to 620. Okay. New construction as well too also does offer down payment assistance. Most of their programs, their preferred lenders offer that down payment assistance for your client as well too. So by all means, still feel comfortable sending them through there and getting that answered. I would typically tell you, take your client by to the new construction, make sure that they like it and all that good stuff. And then really, let's say you go home and they're like, okay, so what do we do? We really like it. We want to move forward with it. So at that time, we would have them to go ahead and fill out the application with their, uh-oh, whoa, um, oh, I think they caught it. Uh, Sorry. Um, So yeah, with a minimum credit score of 580, but they need to get up to 620 for them to be able to full on qualify. Okay, guys. So let me move on to some of these more frequently asked questions that I know often you guys, I hear from mentees, they're like, well, what am I asking the lender? What am I, or me, what am I asking the, when I go out there with the builder and my client and I want to seem knowledgeable. So first off, don't be afraid to ask any questions that you may have off that come off of your own head if you were purchasing this home as well too, even if it was feeling kind of silly, you're new to this builder, whatever it may be. Remember, confidence is always key when you're out there with your client. When they're hiring you, it's as if they're hiring an attorney to represent them. So confidence, even if it's fake confidence, is very vital. Okay. So feel free to ask these questions. It's going to be okay. All right. So some of the things that you need to ask the builder when you're there looking at the property with the client. So first off, when you walk in, take that lead, bring your client in. And if you can call beforehand, fantastic. I know some of the phone numbers to some of the new construction are like 800 numbers, and it's hard to get a hold of somebody at the office. But if you can get that contact information prior to and let that agent know that you're showing up with your client, it makes you look like a superstar. And many times they talk you up as well too to say, man, your agent is on it. Look, they gave me a call before you even came by. Okay. And so you can also ask some questions while you're even on the phone, just to know whether this is a waste of time for you or not. Some are not building at the current time because they haven't opened up their next phase. So you want to make sure that they're building. And two, it's good to find out what the price point, the starting price point is as well too, because if it's out of budget for your client, you don't want to take them by there, right? So when you get there, you get off the car and all that good stuff, take lead and walk in front of your client, introduce yourself to the agent, let them know who you are and who you're with, give them a card, right? And then let them know, hey, this is my client, so and here's what we're looking for. Okay. And so here are some of the questions as we're walking through and talking about the different items that they have available, or as they're showing you their product, you want to go over some of these questions. And some of them, are there any incentives for using their preferred lender? So the new construction company wants you to use their preferred lender because they have some form of affiliation in some way, shape, or form. They have some form of affiliation. And so they're receiving something. They're either, it's a sister company of theirs, they've created that affiliation, they're receiving some kind of compensation, something is happening for them to want to coordinate and work with them. Not just that, they also have a relationship to where um, they keep everything very transparent for them so that they know whether to stop building or not, or whether this deal is going to flop or not. And so by using the preferred lender, they get all of that information. Versus if you were to use your own preferred lender, it's gonna, they could be lying. They could say, yeah, everything is going smoothly, everything is going great. And in reality, things are falling apart, but they don't want to let you know. Okay. So, and of course, obviously that creates issues. Honestly, at the end of the day, they could still stick that house back on the market and go ahead and sell it to the next person. No big deal. Okay. Um, uh, and I mean, sometimes you get really good deals that way because it's uh, the selections have already been made, so that client doesn't get to go through and pick out their carpet or their flooring or their cabinets and all that stuff, and they need to get this off of their plate. So sometimes they give a discount and somebody gets really lucky because of that. Okay. So, and when I talk about incentives, many times the builder is willing to pay for all of their closing costs, which is fantastic. They're willing to pay for the title policy. They're willing to sometimes even throw in some design center money to help your client in the design center as they go through there and make their selections. And sometimes it even includes like appliances as well too. Okay. Now, a good question to also ask is, what are the incentives without using your preferred lender? Okay, because maybe you choose to go in a different direction because the closing costs are lower, maybe they're getting a better rate or whatever it may be. They have a relationship with their lender. Me personally, if they're paying for your closing costs, I don't see any reason why you should be going to another lender. But I have had people that just, they're like, I want to go over with this other lender and I'll pay the fees, the thousands and of closing cost fees over here, and I don't care. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird, but whatever you want to do, okay? So, but find out what incentives they're no longer offering for them not using that preferred lender, okay? And of course, that next question is, does the builder pay for the title policy? Okay, so that's something that you can try and negotiate as well too, all right? It just depends on the builder. There are times that you can submit an offer and negotiate with them, and then there are builders such as like DR Horton that they're like, no, we don't negotiate anything. This is what it is, and this is how it is, and if you don't like it, just don't buy it. And then there's others that are like, oh, well, I'll go ahead and, submit your offer on what you're wanting to offer and see if we can make this work and move forward as such. Okay. And like, for instance, one of those build like Beezer is a little bit more flexible on being able to adjust those prices a bit. Okay. How much is the earnest money deposit? So we want to know how much we have to put down for us to be able to get moving forward. Okay. And to get under contract. Um, how long does your client have to cancel and receive their earnest money back? That's a big question and very important for your client to know. While this would be a part of or in your contract, again, we're not here, although we are realtors, we're not supposed to be explaining the contracts to our client. They need to have an attorney review that contract, right? So if we ask this question, we get the answer to this question for our client in person, and we don't have to necessarily explain the contract to them, right? So, uh, find out how long your client has to be able to change their mind. Some of them are like 3 days and they're like, no, no, you have 3 days to make up your mind. Sorry, this is it. You're stuck in here. If you choose to cancel, we're going to keep your earnest money. Okay. Most are very flexible and willing to work with you, but you got to do it within a reasonable amount of time frame. Now, KB Homes, for instance, is a lot more flexible. They're like, you can cancel and get your earnest money back as long as we haven't scraped the ground right before we're about to start pouring slab. As long as we haven't done that, you can get your earnest money back. Okay. So it just depends on the company and you'll have to ask them. Okay. Um, what kind of warranties does the builder offer? Many offer somewhere like 10 years of foundation warranty, and there's warranty for roof and appliances and water heaters and all these other things. So it's important to find out about the different time frames on that so your client is well informed as to what's being covered. Okay. Another question is, can we do an inspection throughout the building process? There are some, like D.R. Horton, then they're like, no, don't, D.R. Horton and LGI Homes. They're not too thrilled about you going through there and doing an inspection. They want you to do it at the end. If you wouldn't do it at all, they would prefer that. But I encourage my client to do so. So, um, just know that. And how long does it take to build? Again, it could be anywhere between 30 days to 30 days to close if it's already built, and then of course around 5 months if it takes longer to build. Okay, and so keep in mind that your client normally is required to be flexible, and many times in their contract it says you are going to work with us on the closing date. So if they told you, hey, we plan on finishing this up in late April, but they don't finish it until early June, you can't cancel throughout that time and say, oh, well, this is not, you're messing up my dates. In that contract, your client has signed stating that they're going to coordinate with them and be flexible with them because some things are unpredictable. We don't know, if how weather conditions will affect, even like how this pandemic affected people. So there has to be that form of flexibility, and they're agreeing to be flexible throughout that time with the client. So what is your role? And I want to get closing up soon here, but what is your role throughout this time? Because it's so much time. So you're initially going to be with your client, right? Many times you don't have to even be with your client when they sign up or they sign their contract. I've had clients, some that I've never even met in person, that have went and signed up for new construction and put your name down, made all their selections, the agent there helped them and all that good stuff, and they really just send the document to you for you to sign and make you aware of your commission and what's going on and all that good stuff, and then you get briefed and all that good stuff from that agent. If you can be there, that's even greater. That's wonderful, to go through those things with your client and all that good stuff, okay? But ultimately, you kind of don't have to be there, all right? You referred your client there, you let the agent know your client was going, your client put your name down, all that good stuff, and then we start the communication there. Um, your client initially will need to turn in their documents to their lender, okay? So at that point, we're going to have that kind of communication between you and the builder and your client and the lender, okay? So you're going to kind of really just playing some phone tag and remind your client that, hey, you're going to have a little bit more communication with the lender at this time, and the builder will be reaching out to you as well too. And I'm still going to be here. I'm always a phone call away, but you're not going to see me very active during this time because we found your home. We're no longer searching anymore. So, and we're under contract. So things are going to, it's going to feel like I went away, but I'm not, I didn't go away. I am only a phone call away. And I would strongly recommend, because what's going to happen is that you're going to be with your client under contract for about the first 2 weeks, and things will be kind of active there because they're going through the process with the lender, and they may ask you a question or two as well, right? And so many of the questions they could ask to the builder, they could ask to the lender, but they trust you and they're going to go through you. And then you'll just have to make that extra effort of contacting the lender or the builder and asking the question and reiterating that information to them. And sometimes it can be for delivery reasons. Maybe they like the way you deliver the information or the way that you explain things. But either way, you're the one that they trust. So they're going to ask you these questions, okay? What'll happen, so let's say that we're building a house for 5 months. We're going to be busy with them from about the first 2 weeks. Then we're going to go away for about a good 3 months. And then in that last month or two is when we're going to start coming back in. I would say about 6 weeks from closing date, out from closing date is when things will start to spring back up. And you'll start to communicate again with your client. During this time of those 3 months where you have that downtime, I strongly recommend that you call your client once a week and just say, hey, just checking in with you. Have you heard from the builder? Have you heard from the lender? If not, I'll follow up with them, see how things are going. How is life going for you? Just letting you know I'm here, seeing if you needed anything. Okay. It just lets them know that you're there. Even if you want to do a once a week follow up, once every 2 weeks, but let them know that you're there, because sometimes they're like, hello, is anybody here? Because there's such this long stretch. And if you live near their home that's being built, go by there and take pictures and share it with them and let them know, see how the progress is coming along. Many times they're driving by there themselves, but it makes you look very engaged, okay? There's not a whole lot to do in new construction, unfortunately, unless you have a client that is very demanding, okay? And then at that time, you'll see them start to, they'll create a ruckus, and then you'll have to kind of go through, because they definitely want to feel heard and they want to feel acknowledged, and you'll have to create, bridge that gap between them and the builder if they're not being listened to, okay? And sometimes, again, we represent our clients and we have to look out for their best interest. So it's kind of one of those things. If it upsets your client, it upsets you, right? Because you're on the same team. And so while you need to validate their feelings and also fight for what they're talking about, or whatever they want you to defend, obviously do it within reason. I have seen people that have created such a headache for new construction that that builder in particular, has told them, I'm so sorry, here's your earnest money back. We don't need your business. And I've seen it happen more than once. So, just while their arguments are valid, is it worth you losing your house? So, and as you pick back up, again, it's just communication through all parties. So it just means check in with the lender. check in with the builder. How is the progress going? And check in with your client and see if they need anything. Make sure that they've turned in all their documents to the lender and all that good stuff. So it's really just that communication throughout there once you start to get closer to closing. Um, Let me see, I have a few questions here. I think there's some activity here in the quick. Is there any builder that works with ITIN numbers? So ITIN numbers typically need to be 10% down. So you could actually even do an owner finance, to be honest with you, with new construction. You could get an investor to purchase a new construction home, and then they can, once they close, we can do what's called a wraparound loan, and then that investor can do a second closing where they're putting the house into the end buyer's name of the person that had originally wanted it. And so you can technically do it that way. That's probably a little bit easier than going through the whole ITIN process. But if their preferred lender does not offer ITIN financing, you would have to go through an individual lender that does offer ITIN, and then they would have to finance it that way. So that means no incentives, unfortunately, for that client. Um, so that wraps it up for this conversation about new construction. Let me go ahead and open it up for you guys to ask some questions. Feel free to put it in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself as well too if you'd like to.
Is it pretty much the same for a custom home build?
So a custom built home is a lot different. Okay, so that really kind of excludes us out of the picture. So if somebody reaches out to you and they're like, I want to buy my own lot and then I want to build my own house on it with my own ideas on how I want my house built. That's custom built, and that's a whole nother ball game. While we can help the client purchase the land, that's the only place we would be making money off of it, because there's the builder that is going to be building their house is not offering a commission. And of course, your buyer client is likely not going to pay you a commission to go through that process. So that would be a whole nother game doing that. So I always tell the client, if that's the case, I mean, I can help you find the lot, but you'll have to, go and find the builder and use that builder.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a great question because yes, I often get that question that they're like, I want to custom build stuff. Yeah.
So a quick question, just to clarify and make sure I'm following you. So someone with an ITIN buyer, uh, one option, as you explained it, is to have an investor purchase the new build and then uh, essentially become a lender to the ITIN buyer. Is that what you were saying?
Correct. So it could be any owner financing. It doesn't have to necessarily be ITIN.
Right.
It doesn't have to, yeah. So it's just owner financing, period, if somebody wanted to go through that method. So I'm actually in a transaction like that at the moment where my actual buyer wanted to purchase a new construction home, but they
Okay.
needed to purchase with owner financing terms. So
Mhm.
we get an investor to go ahead and so the client is selecting everything that they want, their floors, their
Okay.
whatever. They get to select everything they want. But we just put an investor's name on the contract,
All
and the
right.
investor goes through the entire lending process and all that good stuff.
Yep.
And then once that investor closes on that property and it's under their name, we have a second closing where we put the end buyer as the actual owner at that point. And
Okay.
then it's technically called a wraparound loan. And so
Yep.
now that investor is receiving a profit, mind you, from doing this.
Right.
Because nobody's doing anybody any favors, obviously. So
Right.
the interest rate is higher, obviously, from doing that and stuff. And there's a pretty decent amount of down payment, typically anywhere between 15 to 25% around there. Just depends on the sales price.
Okay.
because it's got to be worth it. But it's definitely worth it to the investor themselves, because they don't have to go and get a property and fix it up and all this other stuff and then pray, hope, and wish somebody's going to come and buy it. In this case, there's already somebody that's excited and wants to give their money to it and all that good stuff and is ready to make those payments and all that good stuff. So it makes it a lot easier for them, and all they have to do is acquire the property.
Right.
Okay, I have
So the second closing, just to complete the thought, so the second closing, would that also be at a title company, or could that be at an attorney's office or
As
something?
long as it's a real estate attorney or it's at with the title company, yes, it will suffice.
Either way.
Yes.
And is that a situation where a third party loan servicing company would handle that, or it would just be between, say, the investor?
Typically, well, I've done it both ways. I've had an
Okay,
investor that I had as my own pocket investor that decided
okay,
to do it.
yep,
And then I didn't need a third party. And then, of course, I've done it through a third party financing company as well, too. And they do that as well, too. So, yes, it's available. You know, if you can coordinate it on your own, then great. And
very
if
nice,
not, then a third party financing company would be ideal.
excellent. And do you have one that you recommend by chance?
Yeah, I really like TL Global.
Okay,
I do periodic meetings over there with them. They're out there in Katy, a little past 99,
okay,
and they do a lot of volume, and they're really great. And none of my everything that they go through is always 100% deal.
great,
As long as the end buyer hasn't canceled. I mean, even if one of the investors that they provide is, you know, doesn't qualify or has an issue or whatever it may be, the deal still works no matter what, because they just go down the list and go to their next investor.
got it.
So it's never an issue. Mhm.
so regarding commission, would you make two commissions off of two different deals, or
Oh man, Laura, I wish. No. You would only make the one commission, but by doing this, you
off
would
of
allow
which one? The
yourself
first or the second one?
the first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the first. Because technically your investor would be your client, you know, and would be the one to sign all of your documents and all that good stuff. Yeah. Um, as far as like buyer representation agreement and all that good stuff. Yeah. What are their two appraisals in new construction? Is the second appraisal also paid by the buyer? So there's only one appraisal fee. It's just that they do it in two different phases. So they do it before the slab has been, or at the point of slab being poured, and then after. I'm not sure why they do that, but they do have two different, they just do it that way. I think it's because they know what it's already being built, and so they just go out there and do the last check to check it out. Again, remember, the appraiser is really going out there just to make sure that the faucet works and the lights work and the plumbing works and the electrical and the AC works and things like that. So they're really just running through the house. Otherwise, they've already determined value for the most part, because this house is very similar to other houses in the community that have already been constructed. So it's not very difficult to find the value of the property when you have other new construction that has sold for a similar value. Okay. What is ITIN? An ITIN, or I call it ITIN number, is a number that's assigned to individuals, typically those immigrant individuals that they don't have a social security number and they need to file their taxes. And so they have an ITIN number that allows them to still be able to purchase a house, file their taxes, work, different things like that. Any other questions, guys? I'll have some good ones. All right, guys, good deal. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I super appreciate it. Again, my name is Danielle Navas, and I'm a mentor here with Texas United Realty, guys. If you have any further questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out or reach out to your mentor. And have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Danielle, what was your phone number?
832-208-9968. 832-208-9968.
Thank you. Sleep with angels, everybody.
Good night. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye.